Megawatts on your mind from Lighthief. We build it, we run it, we know what works, real projects, real returns. The renewable energy podcast that doesn't waste your time. Let's go.
Welcome to Megawatts on Your Mind. Over the past years, building and servicing solar farms across 11 European countries, I've learned one fundamental truth. The greatest threat to our installations doesn't come from the sky in the form of hail, doesn't come from the ground in the form of cable theft. It comes through the Ethernet cable connected to our inverter controllers. Today, we'll have a tough conversation. I'll discuss numbers that most of the solar industry prefers to ignore. Intelligence reports documenting systematic attacks on renewable energy infrastructure across Europe, and why every solar farm you manage could be remotely shut down tomorrow by foreign intelligence services. This isn't conspiracy theory. These are facts from NATO reports, European intelligence agencies, and incidents that have already occurred. Let's begin. Let me start with the most aggressively targeted country to illustrate the scale of what's happening across Europe. Poland's Minister of Digital Affairs, Krzysztof Gałkowski, revealed in October numbers that should wake up the entire renewable energy industry. Poland experiences between 2,000 and 4,000 cyber attacks daily on its critical infrastructure. About 1,000 of these incidents are serious enough to require immediate response from cybersecurity teams. By the end of September 2025, 170,000 cyber incidents had been identified in Poland. And crucially for us as solar farm operators, Deputy Minister Dariusz Standurski told the Financial Times directly, foreign operations have expanded their focus to the energy sector. He's not talking about traditional power plants with military-grade security. He's talking about distributed renewable sources, solar farms, wind farms, installations that we build and operate every day. Russian military intelligence, according to Gałkowski, has tripled its resources dedicated to hostile operations against Poland this year alone. Poland's cybersecurity budget increased from 600 million euros in 2024 to 1 billion euros this year. Think about the scale of this problem. 1 billion euros annually just to defend against cyber attacks. But Poland is not an isolated case. It's simply the most intensely targeted. The European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, ENISA, reports that in 2023, the energy sector in Europe experienced over 200 reported cyber incidents, with more than half specifically targeted against Europe. Thierry Breton, the former EU Commissioner for Internal Market, said during his visit to ENISA, in 2023 alone, over 200 cyber incidents targeted the energy sector, with more than half aimed at Europe. Threats in critical sectors can impact the daily lives of citizens and business. But here's where it gets truly alarming. A TrustWave report from January this year shows an 80% increase in ransomware attacks on the energy sector in 2024. 80% year-over-year growth. This isn't a slow trend. It's an explosion of threats. Sophos conducted a detailed survey among 275 cybersecurity and IT leaders in the energy, oil, and gas sectors across 14 countries. The result, 67% admitted their organizations experienced a ransomware attack in the past year. 2/3 of energy companies were attacked. If you manage a portfolio of solar farms, statistically, you've either already been attacked or will be within the next 12 months. Dragonfly Intelligence, a firm specializing in energy sector threat analysis, published an assessment in October 2024 warning, cyber criminals and Russian state-backed hacking groups will almost certainly try to disrupt energy infrastructure, including renewables, in the coming year. They use the phrase almost certainly. That's the highest confidence level in intelligence analysis. And this threat is particularly serious for solar and wind farms because, as the FBI noted in their July 2024 warning, structural shifts in the reduced cost of implementation of renewable energy and incentives for development of clean energy have created new targets and opportunities for cyber threat actors. Why are renewable installations so vulnerable? Unlike traditional power plants, solar and wind farms are by design distributed, remote, and digitally managed. Every farm represents hundreds of attack points, every inverter with an IP address, every data logger with remote access, every camera with cloud connectivity. Deloitte estimated that 70% of Internet of Things devices have very simple default passwords, and most users never change them. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, issued a warning on September 25, 2024, that hostile cyber actors globally are actively exploiting operational technology connected to the internet using elementary methods, password guessing, using default factory credentials that were never changed. These aren't sophisticated zero-day exploits. This is checking whether the doors are locked, and in most solar farms, the doors are wide open. In the United Kingdom alone, 1,000 cyber attack attempts per day were recorded against renewable energy infrastructure in 2024. If you have a portfolio of 10 farms across Europe, statistically, you can expect approximately 50 attack attempts daily. 99% will be blocked by basic firewalls, but 1% will get through. 71% of cybersecurity professionals admit their organizations are more vulnerable to attacks than ever before. Why? Because renewable infrastructure is growing faster than our ability to secure it. Every year we add gigawatts of new capacity. Every new project means hundreds of new IoT devices. The attack surface is growing exponentially. Now, let's move to a topic that's even more controversial and far more suppressed in the industry: Chinese control over European solar farms. In May 2025, Reuters revealed a discovery that should fundamentally change how we think about solar farm security. Hidden cellular radios were found in Chinese inverters at American solar farms, undocumented communication modules capable of remotely shutting down equipment. These components, described as kill switches, weren't listed in any technical specifications. There wasn't a word about them in the documentation. They were simply there, hidden. This isn't theoretical. In November 2024, Chinese company Dai actually remotely shut down solar systems in the United States, United Kingdom, and Pakistan. Messages appeared on inverter screens. This inverter is not allowed use at Pakistan/USA/UK. Please return to your supplier. The company explained this as export restrictions. But for us as solar farm operators, the message is clear. They have the physical capability to remotely shut down any installation they want, whenever they want. Now let's talk about the scale of this problem. The European Solar Manufacturing Council, ESMC, published an estimate that should stop every energy company board in Europe. Over 200 gigawatts of European solar capacity, equivalent to 200 nuclear power plants, relies on inverters manufactured in China. Christoph Podwils, ESMC's Secretary General, said directly, "This means Europe has effectively surrendered remote control of a vast portion of its electricity infrastructure." According to Wood Mackenzie research, Chinese firms account for 50% of all solar inverters worldwide. Two companies, Huawei and SunGrow, together controlled more than half of the global market in 2023. Huawei Solar has 115 gigawatts of market share in European inverters. The six largest Chinese suppliers collectively control 219 gigawatts of installed capacity in Europe. 95% of solar panels in the European Union come from China. Over 80% of inverters, too. When you're preparing specifications for a new EPC project, Chinese inverters are probably the default option because they're cheapest, have good efficiency, and everyone uses them. Clients look at CAPEX and choose the option that's 20-30% cheaper. But there's a fundamental legal problem that few in the industry know about. China's National Intelligence Law from 2017, Article 7 states unequivocally, any organization and citizen shall support, assist, and cooperate with state intelligence work. This isn't optional, it's a legal obligation for every Chinese company. Huawei, Sungrow, Longi, Trina Solar, Jinko Solar, JA Solar, all these companies, if China's Ministry of State Security in Beijing demands access to data from your farms, access to your inverters, the ability to remotely shut down installations, they must comply. This is a legal requirement under threat of imprisonment for management. Mike Rogers, former director of the U.S. National Security Agency, warned China views Western energy grids as vulnerable targets and is betting on widespread use of Chinese-made inverters to limit the West's options for securing its infrastructure. Huawei is the same company that was banned from U.S. telecommunications networks on national security grounds. The argument was simple. Huawei must legally cooperate with Chinese intelligence, so it cannot be in critical telecommunications infrastructure. The same logic, the same legal problem applies to energy infrastructure. But Europe, in pursuit of low installation costs, ignored this warning. Only one country in the European Union decided to act radically. Lithuania, in April 2024, passed a law explicitly banning China from remotely accessing and controlling the digital systems of its renewable energy assets. The law prohibits the use of Chinese inverters above 100 kilowatts in critical installations. The Czech Republic, through its cybersecurity agency NUKIB, issued an official warning about cybersecurity threats posed by Chinese components. The rest of Europe? Business as usual. We keep installing gigawatts with Chinese inverters because they're cheaper. Let me paint an operational scenario, a real possibility based on existing technology. Imagine Wednesday, 3 p.m., middle of summer, peak solar production. Your 10-megawatt farm in Central Europe is generating 9.5 megawatts. Beautiful day. SCADA system shows everything normal. 3 p.m., 3:15, all Chinese inverters receive an encrypted remote signal and execute emergency shutdown. 3 p.m., 3:20, 10 megawatts disappear from the grid in 5 seconds. Your alarm system goes crazy. SCADA shows communication error on all inverters simultaneously. You call the service team, they drive to site. 3:45 p.m., technicians on location. All inverters showing identical error codes that aren't in the technical documentation. They cannot restore operation. 4:30 p.m., you call the Chinese manufacturer, technical hotline says, investigating. 6 p.m., still no response. You've lost 3 hours of peak generation. That's approximately 25 megawatt hours of losses at 100 euros per megawatt hour. That's 2,500 euros of direct revenue loss in one day. Next day, manufacturer comes back with software update required, but the update can only be done remotely through their servers in China. You need to give them VPN access to your SCADA system. Do you give them access? Do you have a choice? This is loss of operational control over your own installation. Spain and Portugal experienced a massive blackout on April 28th, 2025, tens of millions without power. Generation loss, 15 gigawatts in 5 seconds, 60% of supply. At the moment of the blackout, 59% of Spain's energy came from solar installations. The official report ruled out cyber attack, blamed voltage management problems in conventional power plants, but the incident showed the fundamental fragility of a system dependent on thousands of distributed inverters. Philipp Schroeder, CEO of German solar company 1,5, said, 10 years ago, switching off Chinese inverters wouldn't have caused a dramatic effect because capacity was small. Now, with gigawatts of solar power, the risk is exponentially greater. His company consciously avoids Huawei equipment despite it being more expensive. And as an EPC firm that wants long-term reputation, you should do the same. The Spanish blackout showed that loss of just 2 gigawatts can trigger cascading failures. Control of 3-4 gigawatts has the potential to create chaos across the continent. How many solar farms need to be shut down simultaneously to lose 3 gigawatts? At an average utility scale farm size of 10 megawatts, only 300 farms. There are tens of thousands of solar farms across Europe. Finding 300 with Chinese inverters that could be shut down in a coordinated attack isn't difficult. It's trivial. Let's move to specific incidents because these aren't abstract future threats. These are attacks that have already occurred on renewable energy infrastructure in Europe. In 2022, 5,800 wind turbines in Germany were shut down by a cyber attack. Attackers exploited a vulnerability in the remote management system of a service provider. 5,800 turbines. If they can shut down that many wind turbines simultaneously, the question isn't, can they attack solar farms, but when will they do it? In 2024, Lithuania experienced cyber attacks attributed to Russian group Just Evil, which allegedly disrupted operations of solar power systems. Finnish energy company Fortum reported in October 2024 an increase in cyber attacks and surveillance targeting their renewable energy assets. In May 2024, more than a dozen Danish energy companies were hacked through an exploit targeting a vulnerability in a popular industrial firewall. The incident also affected companies in renewable energy. It was only revealed in November, 6 months after the attack, showing how long attackers can operate in systems without detection. The International Institute for Strategic Studies, IISS, documented over 50 sabotage incidents targeting critical infrastructure in Europe between 2022 and 2025. The report describes a systematic campaign conducted by Russian intelligence services. The European Union Institute for Security Studies, EUISS, published a report this year warning that Russia's shadow fleet, over 1,000 vessels according to June data, is increasingly used not just for oil transport, but for spying on and attacking European energy infrastructure. In December 2024, tanker Eagle S, part of this fleet, severed the S-Link 2 cable connecting Finland and Estonia. Finnish authorities found surveillance equipment on board atypical for such a vessel. The repair cost of S-Link 2, 50 to 60 million euros, but that figure doesn't include the near doubling of electricity prices over 6 months while the cable was out of service. NATO Deputy Secretary General Mircea Joanna stated in 2024 that allies have communicated red lines to Russian authorities regarding sabotage. At the NATO summit in Vilnius in June 2023, member states agreed to treat certain hybrid attacks, particularly cyber attacks on infrastructure, with the same seriousness as armed attack, potentially invoking Article 5 collective defense. What does this mean practically? If a coordinated Russian cyber attack shuts down 50 gigawatts of solar and wind farms across Europe, causes a cascading blackout that kills people in hospitals, NATO may consider this an attack requiring collective military response. This shows how seriously they take this threat at the highest levels. Across Europe, we're seeing different levels of preparedness and threat intensity. Germany experienced significant attacks on offshore wind farms in 2022 linked to Russian threat actors. France has seen intimidation incidents and surveillance of energy infrastructure. The Netherlands and Nordic countries report regular probing attempts against their wind and solar installations. Italy and Spain, despite massive renewable capacity, show lower cybersecurity awareness among operators compared to Northern Europe. The UK's National Cybersecurity Centre has repeatedly warned about threats to renewable infrastructure, noting that as renewable generation becomes a larger portion of the grid, it becomes a more attractive target for hostile state actors. In 2024 alone, UK renewables faced 1,000 attack attempts daily. Now let's discuss specifically what all this means for you as solar farm operators, O&M managers, EPC firms building new projects across Europe. Standard O&M contracts guarantee availability above 98%, response time below 4 hours for critical alarms, uptime targets with bonus and penalty systems. But a coordinated cyber attack can shut down an entire portfolio simultaneously. Availability drops to 0. It can block alarm systems so you don't receive alerts. It can encrypt access credentials so you cannot respond even if you know about the problem. And there's a fundamental legal problem. Your O&M contract probably doesn't have a clause about state-sponsored cyber attacks. Force majeure typically covers extreme weather, fires, floods, wars in the traditional sense. But coordinated cyber attack by state-sponsored actors? No. So who bears the cost of downtime? You, as the O&M operator. Availability penalties will be assessed even if it was Russian GRU that hacked you. Industrial Cyber warns that potential losses from operational technology incidents could reach $329.5 billion globally. But let's focus on your portfolio. Assume you manage 50 megawatts of solar farms across Europe. Typical production day in July, 50 megawatts times 6 peak hours times 80 euros per megawatt hour equals 24,000 euros revenue. Cyber attack shuts down farms for 3 days, 72,000 euros direct revenue loss. Additionally, cybersecurity forensics cost 20,000, system restoration cost 15,000, O&M contract penalties 30,000, reputational damage unquantifiable. Total 137,000 euros plus for one incident. And according to Sophos statistics, 67% of firms were attacked in the past year. Let me describe a typical ransomware attack scenario on a solar farm, because this isn't abstract. An exactly similar incident happened to an O&M firm in Denmark in 2023. Day 0, infiltration undetected. Office employee clicks phishing email impersonating inverter supplier. Urgent firmware update required. Link downloads malware. Malware scans network, finds VPN connection to farm SCADA systems. Days 1 to 30, lateral movement, undetected. Attackers explore your network, map all farms, all inverters, backup systems, seek most valuable targets. Day 31, Saturday, 2 a.m., attack. Ransomware activates simultaneously on all SCADA systems across portfolio, encrypts all inverter configurations, all historical logs, all setting parameters, monitoring system, backup servers if they were on the same network. Message on screen, your solar portfolio has been encrypted. Pay 50 Bitcoin, $2 million within 72 hours or data will be destroyed. Saturday, 6 a.m. on-call O&M team receives alarms. All farms show no communication. Local technicians drive to sites, see ransomware message on screens. Saturday, 8 a.m. to Sunday, 11:59 p.m., asset manager panicking calls how long to restore. You can't answer because you don't know if you have configuration backups. SCADA vendor weekend, nobody answers. Client screaming because losing 50,000 euros daily. O&M contract has penalties for availability below 98%. Monday, you must make a decision. Pay ransom, no guarantee you'll get data back and you're financing terrorism. Restore from backup, if you even have backups, and if they weren't on the same network that got encrypted. Rebuild from factory settings, 1 to 2 weeks of work, hundreds of thousands of euros, production loss. This really happened. Dragonfly Intelligence warns that Russia will probably remain the main state actor conducting hostile cyber operations against Europe's energy sector. 71% of cybersecurity professionals admit their organizations are more vulnerable than ever. Why? Because renewable infrastructure is growing faster than our ability to secure it. Every year we add gigawatts of new capacity. Every new project means hundreds of new IoT devices. Attack surface grows exponentially. So what can we do as an industry, as operators, as EPC firms, building new installations across Europe? First, portfolio audit. You need to know exactly what inverters are installed in all your farms. What percentage are Chinese brands, which have remote internet access capability? How is that access configured? This is fundamental. You can't secure what you don't know. Second, Network segmentation. Every solar farm must implement proper architecture. Internet, Firewall 1, DMZ for monitoring systems, Firewall 2, SCADA and operational technology network. Never connect inverters directly to internet. Never give inverter manufacturers direct VPN access to your OT network. If manufacturer must do firmware update, download file offline, test on one inverter, install locally through technician. Yes, it's more expensive and slower, but it's secure. Third, for new EPC projects, you must start offering alternative suppliers. SMA Solar from Germany, 25% more expensive, but no Chinese backdoor. Fronius from Austria, premium quality plus 30% in price, but trusted European manufacturer. Power Electronics from Spain, growing utility scale market share. Fimer ABB, Italian-Swiss brand. How to sell this to clients. We can give you Chinese inverters at 50,000 euros per megawatt or European at 65,000. Difference is 15,000 per megawatt more. But if Chinese inverters are remotely shut down and you lose 1 week of summer production, that's 150 megawatt hours times 80 euros, 12,000 euros loss, plus contractual penalties for unavailability. European inverters pay for themselves after the first avoided incident. Fourth, 24/7 monitoring. Every farm above 1 megawatt should have 24/7 SCADA monitoring. Alert on any unplanned inverter configuration change. Alert on any remote access attempt outside IP whitelist. Log all communications between inverters and external servers. Practical tools, Splunk or Elastic for log aggregation, Nozomi Networks or Clarity for OT security monitoring. Cost, 10 to 50,000 euros annually, depending on portfolio size. Return, 1 avoided major incident. Fifth, incident response plan. Must be documented, tested. Step 1, detection, 0 to 15 minutes. Who gets alert, how you verify attack versus failure, who makes decisions. Step 2, containment, 15 to 60 minutes. Disconnecting infected systems, isolating critical components, communicating with client and grid operator. Step 3, recovery, 1 to 24 hours, restoration procedure, integrity verification, controlled restart. Step 4, post-incident, 1 to 7 days. Forensics, what happened, client report, procedure updates. Conduct tabletop exercise with team every 6 months. Sixth, contracts and insurance. In EPC contracts add clause, cyber attack by equipment manufacturer or foreign intelligence services is not covered by performance guarantee. If installation met NIS2 cybersecurity standards, operator acted according to procedures, incident was reported within 24 hours. In O&M contracts, force majeure includes coordinated cyber attacks by state actors on equipment manufacturers. Consider cyber insurance for portfolio, cost 0.5 to 1% of insured value annually, coverage for downtime losses, forensics costs, contractual penalties. Seventh, NIS2 compliance. The NIS2 directive is being enforced across Europe now. Requirements for solar farm operators above 10 megawatts. Risk assessment once yearly, incident reporting within 24 hours, documented cybersecurity procedures, personnel training, external audits, hire consultant for 3 to 5 days to conduct gap analysis and help prepare documentation. Cost 5 to 15,000 euros. Cost of non-compliance, penalties up to 10 million euros or 2% of global turnover. Eighth, supply chain due diligence. For every new project, add to vendor evaluation. Where are inverters manufactured? Not where HQ is, but where actual production. Is company subject to China's national intelligence law? Do inverters have remote access capability? Through whose servers can remote access be completely disabled? Red flags. Remote access is mandatory for warranty. Cannot disable cloud connectivity. Firmware updates only through our servers in China. Ninth, team training. 70% of IoT devices have default passwords never changed. Basic hygiene for every technician. Change default passwords on every device, unique passwords per installation, disable unused ports, update firmware to latest versions after testing. Team training, recognizing phishing, secure SCADA connection, suspicious activity response procedures. 10th, physical protection. Russian sabotage isn't only cyber attacks. Transformer arson, physical inverter damage, drones with explosive payloads happen in Ukraine daily. Security measures, thermal cameras on substation transformers, acoustic or radar drone detection is available technology, fencing around inverter containers, security patrols for farms above 5 megawatts in high-risk areas. 11th, backups and redundancy. If your farm is shut down, how quickly can you restore? Must have backup of all inverter configurations offline on USB, backup of SCADA configuration, spare parts on site, spare inverter, spare PLC, factory reset, and restore procedure. Test restore every 6 months. Take one inverter offline, do factory reset, restore from backup, measure time. Goal, restore single inverter under 2 hours. And 12th, networking with other operators. The European solar industry must unite on security. Consider creating informal security working groups with other O&M operators, sharing anonymized threat intelligence, joint training, joint procurement of security tools with volume discounts. In conclusion, the energy transformation cannot be a risky one. It must be a transformation toward true energy security for Europe. Lighthief will continue building solar farms across 11 European countries. We'll continue providing O&M and more. But we will not ignore threats that are real, documented, growing every day. I'll repeat the key numbers. 2,000 to 4,000 cyber attacks daily targeting critical infrastructure in some of EU country, 170,000 incidents in 3/4 of 2025, 200 gigawatts of solar capacity controlled by Chinese inverters, 80% increase in ransomware attacks on energy. These aren't statistics. These are warnings. The question isn't whether you'll be attacked. The question is, will you be prepared when it happens? Thank you for listening. If this episode opened your eyes, share it across the industry. Solar and wind farm security is everyone's concern. They attack everyone, so we all must defend together. See you soon on the next episode of Megawatts on Your Mind.